exploring how our choices, shape tomorrow's outcome, right? Now, this picture depicts two outcomes, in the life of a man, right? And it's whether or not you are actively taking a decision or making a choice or actively doing something, whether actively or not doing anything, you are actually doing something. Now, what that means is whether or not you are taking action, there's an outcome from that action you're taking. You're actually taking an action in the sense. So there's no space for neutrality, and um, this is what feeds into the outcome of our lives, at the end of the day. And whether we're going to arrive at the destination that aligns with the will of God or not. So it is our decision to plant the right seeds or take the right actions or make the right choices or not to be able to arrive at the desired destination, that aligns with God's purpose and plans for our life. Um, the other thing I just wanted to talk about is um, how that from creation, how God, you know, as soon as God, was done with creation, the first thing that He did was to give man the power to make a choice. It's so interesting when you look at how creation happened. I'm sure if creation happened from God giving breath to a child, it would be difficult to have man make a decision. But man had to be an adult, from the very start, because he needed to be able. God needed to be able to allow man to make his own choices, and that choice, that power to make a choice, has to be consciously taken because you need to rely on the creator's manual, who is God, to be able to know the right decisions to take, to be able to arrive at his will and his purpose for your life. So whatever direction you take, whatever choice you make, it's important that, as believers in this sense, in this context now, we follow the manual that has been set and the manual that has been designed for our lives to be able to arrive at the right, destination, which is the will of God for our lives. And our decisions have to be taken intentionally. It has to be thought through. We cannot just wake up and not ask God or not be intentional about the words we speak, the actions we take, the response we give to challenges, the steps that we take, the doors that we open, as little as the way you stand up, the way you walk around your house, the way you get into conversations, the first call you make in the morning, have to be really intentional, because what does happen is, your life is governed by two broad principles, two main principles. And that principle, I'll just go, is called seed and test. Now, like I said, our lives are governed by two spiritual realities, which is seed and test. Please confirm to me that my slide is moving, because I hope I'm not on the first slide. Anyone?
It is. But are you able to put it to presentation mode if that works for you?
Okay.
Just right at the bottom beside the minus sign.
Okay. Okay, is it the hide button, for instance?
Just at the bottom, if you go notes, comments, and keep moving right, you find the last icon just before the minus sign at the red bar at the bottom.
Okay.
Left. Move right. Come to the bottom to the red bar and then just move right. Maybe we're not seeing the same thing. Yeah.
Trust me, I'm not sure
Ah,
what's
okay.
saying
I
the
think
same.
it's not popping up on your side. Not to worry. Just go on.
Yeah, 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 I can actually say it. Okay. Yes. So like I was saying, I mean, it's our lives are governed by two spiritual realities, which, I mean, it's I mean, like I did say, there's nothing that is neutral. I mean, so from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, our lives revolve around two governing spiritual realities, which is seed and test. So um it's our lives in that space of being active, shows the seed that we're planting or the test that we're taking. So whether or not we're passing or failing the test, it is that our lives are governed by these two realities: planting of seed and uh, and taking tests. Right? Whether it's in our habits, in our some of the desires that we have as human beings, the words that we speak, the decisions that we make, and the response. For instance, at the office, you're under pressure. Even your kids, at home, there are conversations that come up, and you get into that mood of responding, without conscious intentionality. You know, whether we like it or not, it shapes the outcome of our lives. It influences the future, and the choices that we make at the end of the day gives us an a future that we have by ourselves designed with our own decision. We have built our our outcome by our own our own seed, and whether we are failing or passing a test. So we got to be intentional, and that's the crux of this conversation. We got to be intentional about the way we respond to challenges, the way we you know make decisions, the way we respond to even making our choices. It has to be done with intentionality, because at the end of the day, that feeds into the outcome that becomes of our lives, right? And another thing I just wanted to quickly talk about was, to sort of delve into the nature of seed. It's funny how when you plant corn, you cannot go and reap tomato. You plant corn, you can't say, oh, at harvest time you say, no, I need wheat. So the what you put in is what you get out. So harvest is a function of seed. So harvest is like the consequence of of seed. So you cannot a farmer cannot plant a particular, like I said, plant corn and say, no, oh, the harvest time, no, I'm expecting wheat, I need to harvest wheat. So it's whether negative or positive, if the eventual outcome is going to reflect the nature of what you have put in, which is the seed that you have planted. So it is important that as believers, that we are conscious of the seed that we're planting, from the very beginning of our day to the end, and continuously like that. So, and in just talking about how we how test also reveals who and what controls us. Sometimes it's not just focusing on, I mean, the harvest or the outcome will not determine how because sometimes people focus on how the life will be great. For instance, how I would be able to have spiritual authority, or how I'll be able to operate in a level of economic, power or strength, without looking at the steps that takes you, to that very goal or to that very outcome. I think it was Pastor Dari I was saying one time about how that in the very beginning of the year, how that you when you set goals, you have to break it down to the steps that will take you to that, I mean, to achieving that goal or that outcome. So we must, as believers, focus on those little things that we do from the moment we wake up, from the moment we engage people. The because we're either passing tests or failing tests, or we are planting seeds that will eventually give us an outcome. And guess what? It's going to expose who and what controls us. Because if you are unable to consciously take the right decision or make the right choice that builds into the outcome that aligns with God's will for your life, then it's actually your decision at the end of the day. Still, whether or not it becomes beautiful or not beautiful, it is us that are taking the decision. We must take responsibility for building, the right, language, the right, the right input, the right seed, passing the test of life, that will take us to the destination that God has designed for us, according to His will. Praise God. Um, Another thing I just wanted to, emphasize on is the fact that we need to focus on building our lives intentionally with the right seeds, right? Just to talk about some of the things that we that come to put us under pressure sometimes. Like one of those conversations I was having one time, and we're just sharing how that the devil does not actually go out of his way to create a fresh idea. What he just does is he will look at a man and look at his desires. If you probably have a challenge with, contentment, that's the that's the that's the that's where he will come from. He will not go and design something. He will look at you and focus on your vulnerabilities. You focus on your desires. You focus on your fears, your habits, your pain, your trauma, your the abuse that you've experienced. That's where it's going to come from. It's not going to. The devil doesn't even have power to create something extraordinary. He works with what man allows him to work with. The words you speak, the way you relate with others, the decisions you make, they are all seeds. They are all, that person that you speak to in a rude manner. It's in fact, I tell you a personal story, just reminds me. And I mean, sometimes I feel a little bit embarrassed to talk about this, but I mean, it's just to drive home the point. I was in the office one day, and because you know how that you're interacting with people that are of different cultures, and there's a lot of language being thrown around. I was in that space. I was hearing a lot of words that were just going around, and I was quite displeased with a particular service, you know, that one of the partner companies was, offering us. And I was so displeased, and I used a word, we're still work in progress, not perfect. I used a word. I was like, oh, this is God forgive me. I mean, I was like, this is so shitty, And even me using that word, I was shocked at my, because you know how you say something, I'm like, okay, does it mean I just said that? Why did I even say that? I hope these people did not hear me, you know. And guess what? Because I just said that word, somebody that was not even, I mean, he's not born again. I had to, in fact, he's not born again, and he is not, you know, he's not used to hearing those kind of words from me, and I did not even know. And immediately what he said was, is that you that just used that word? I'm like, I felt so horrible. I was like, God, please forgive me. How can I repair this? So at that point, I wasn't just conscious, and I wasn't conscious of the environment I was, and I was not um really intentional about choosing my words. But guess what? The person that had heard me, that had seen me interact before, knew straight away that that word was not what he would typically hear from me. And I personally, I thought I could just get away with it. I would probably carried away with the environment and some of the words that were being thrown around. So it's important. That's just my own story. It's important that we intentionally choose our words right. Choose, I mean, be conscious of the words, the things that you do around, because your life is the first Bible that people read. So it's important that whether you're under pressure, you're in an environment, in a work environment where a lot of things, that you must be conscious of who you are, because those are seeds that you're planting. And if I personally, it dawned on me that I'm already preaching without even preaching, because in that office I didn't know that I was already making impact without even like literally carrying the Bible to share the word. That's somebody that is not even in the faith that noticed that. So we must be intentional, and we must not, I mean, like I was saying that test helps to show who and what controls you. When you speak to somebody rudely, it's a test of your character. Or when somebody speaks to you rudely, for instance, is testing your character and how you respond to that person. That's a test of character. When there's a delay, your patience is being tested. It's everything is between seed and test every time. Is it a success that just happened quickly? You have to be conscious again that your humility is now being tested. Nobody notices you in the office, or you're in a space, you're in a group that nobody notices me. I'm not in that, I'm not on the platform and all of that. But what you should have at the back of your mind is that your motive is being tested. And there's an offense. It's a test of forgiveness. So these are very, very important things that we as believers must be conscious of, must intentionally and consciously guard against, so that we don't fall into the trap of the enemy. Now, I think there's the last slide, or the second to last slide I'm just going to share, is how, I mean, I said it from the beginning, how harvest is a consequence of seed. So you don't wait till harvest and try to negotiate the type of harvest you're going to have, or the outcome you're going to have. Because harvest is just a manifestation of the seed that you planted. So but God shows us mercy, which is what we as believers, the way of escape that God has created for us. But what's important is that our harvest is always predicated upon the seed that we have planted. So it's just a reflection of what we have already put into the ground. So we got to be conscious, we got to be intentional about building our outcome from a conscious place, and an intentional place that gives us the outcome. So the last slide I just wanted to quickly share before time drops down on me, is that in order for us to be able to function, because it's easy to say all of these things and, oh, be conscious, but how can you be conscious just by being conscious? No, it's practically impossible for man to be able to function at that level of consciousness without the word of God. Because just like like I just depicted in a plane, when you're taking, I mean, if you've spoken to pilots, they dare not even take off, or even put on the ignition of a plane without a compass, without communication with the control tower, if they don't have a navigation system. So this is how we arrive at God's will for our lives, by being conscious of the word of God as our compass, continuously praying, and in constant communication with the Father. That's what helps us to stay aligned with the direction we're going, and the altitude we should be on, or when we are not doing the right thing. When sometimes when people say prayer, what I believe is there's a place of praying for 50 hours. But you see, when you do not have the time, you must be conscious that every second counts. By the time you are you are waking up, by the time you're stepping out, you've got to be engaging prayer. God, what do you want me to do? It's not until you have the 50 hours. It is that moment, every moment you must ask God, because God is interested in every step of our our journey in life, right? So, and we must have the Spirit of God nurture the that's the capacity to be able to continuously engage your spirit, not just from from the physical mind. So it's important that we are conscious of activating the spirit that controls the physical, so that we are able to overwhelm the physical, or the flesh that sometimes drags us into spaces that makes us take decisions that are not exactly aligned with God's will. Praise God. I think I'm within time, and that's the last slide. And I would uh, I mean, it will be okay for us to share what we think, just contributions, and as well as any questions that we could, engage.
Thank you very much for this. When I saw something on your slide about the seed, I was like, oh my god, this man is spiritual. Because it spotlights some of the things we'll be looking at next month, which starts from tomorrow, by the way. When I wanted to be able to throw some light into it, because I never really, should I say, look at it in that light, looking at trauma as a seed, right? Trauma as a seed. And I'm like, trauma is a seed. A lot of time it looks like something we just want to expunge from our life and just find it, pick it out and throw it away. A lot of people just say, in fact, it's a weed, you know. But when he said it's a seed, it really threw me into some very, into some meditation in there. So please, and you said something in light of it when you were saying that the devil tries to tamper with some of all these experiences. As well, because he doesn't have power to create his own and whatnot and whatnot. But please just throw some light into that trauma as a seed.
Yes. So trauma indeed is a seed, because usually the experiences that has shaped us as humans, or from our foundations, or from the environment that we God placed us in, for instance, is governed by man, you know um on the earth. So for instance, somebody that is born into a family where there's always fighting, there's always curse words used, it is a natural progression for that person to um just by default think that's the way to live, or that's the way to respond to challenges, or when you are being challenged about a particular situation. The natural response now becomes using curse words. So it's important to know that it's man that has failed that child, not God. God placed that child in that environment, but man failed that child. So when that man grows up to become an adult and carries on that same type of experience and begins to create a home, the natural outcome is going to be another home that's even worse, where wrong words are used, and that shapes the outcome of that home, right? So it's it's important that we are conscious of the traumas that we've been through as well. And is as even, I mean, somebody was saying one time that if you exchange the child of a wealthy man, and a poor man, you exchange their children, and they grow up in that environment, they will naturally just have different mindset. just by the function of being brought up in the particular environment, you're going to have that, the outcome of that experience you've been exposed to. It doesn't matter where your surname is or where your bloodline is. So it's important that we explore that, part of our lives, to be sure what kind of traumas do I carry, which, because the traumas that we carry sometimes are embedded in our decisions. It's not loud, it's not written in the forehead, oh, I have trauma. No, it is the experiences you've had. You must be conscious to say, does this align with God's will? And if it doesn't align with God's will, it's definitely not what you should allow to fester, or you should allow to follow you, in the journey of life, because it is definitely going to be misaligned with God's will for your life, and is going to end up like the first picture that we saw in the presentation. You're going to end up in a different direction other than God's will for your life. That's just a bit that just a clarification that I just wanted to add to that. Is that
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much for that. Anybody else? Any question or comments?
I okay.
Okay.
Why am
Why
I
am I
calling?
calling?
Let me.
Okay. PD, there's something wrong with your system. We need to fix it. Hi, Bishop. Thank you for such a beautiful session. I think I had questions on your fifth slide. Was it the fifth slide or the fourth slide about building life intentionally? Do you want to put the slide back up?
Oh, okay. 1 second. Let me just put that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the one?
Oh, I can't see the slides yet.
Oh, really?
Okay, it's coming up now. Yeah. I mean, building intentionally, and you spoke about seeds and you spoke about tests, and I just like your understanding on what test is, especially in the evolution of your being yourself, as you go through the process. How do you know this is a test, and when do you know this is just, it's not a test, this is just this is just a bad human being? Do you know what I mean? Like, this place is just
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the beautiful thing about this whole thing is you can have both seed and test, go, in one. I mean, it can happen simultaneously. Like the story I just gave earlier was my own experience, and at that point for me it was a test, because I got drawn into what the environment was dictating, and some of the energies I was feeling in the room, and I got carried away. So I mean, I would say in a sense I did fail that test, right? Um so but when it comes to you, projecting yourself, or projecting your actions, or um in because I feel like in terms of seed has to do with what you put in the ground, what you invest, or what you put in, right? But test has to do with something that is coming to you, which is outward inward, right? But the seed will now in this sense be what you put in, which is inward outward, right? I don't know if that sort of I don't know if that's what you're because if you're looking at it
Yeah.
from the I mean from how to judge uh, someone else's inputs, or to categorize it between test and seeds, it would be in the sense that how the person is interacting with the environment, or interacting with people, or what the person is putting out there, right? That becomes test for that person. But seeds outward inward, right? That that's how I see it. But we
Thank you
have
very
men of
much.
God in this room that have got a um, deeper depth than me, so you can answer. Yes,
Thank you very much. This is very helpful, Bishop. Thanks.
thank you.
Um, Thank you, Bishop. And maybe just to buttress what you said, while